Welcome back. It is election day, coast to coast sports, starting with the Chiefs and Bucs. Short show today. Don't worry, guys. I'll let you guys focus on the election. Suit and a tie day, baby. Late night for Levi, who just finished calling a Washington State University basketball game. Go Cougs. The Mahomes, the Chiefs beating the Buccaneers in primetime Monday Night Football. There is clearly a fear factor with Kansas City at this point. I don't know what else you can call it. Tampa controlled the game. They led 17-10, fourth quarter. All of a sudden, Chiefs score twice, make it 24-17. Buccaneers fail to move the ball offensively. Then the Bucs miraculously figure it out. And at the end of the game, they tie the game 24-24, send it to overtime. And the argument that I was seeing on Twitter is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should have gone for it. Because essentially what they're saying is you either go for it or you're giving it up to a coin toss. Because you know if the Chiefs win the coin toss, Mahomes is going to win the game in overtime. You know it. And so the Twitter heads, the Twitter coaches are saying just go for two. If you make it, you win. If you miss it, you lose. But don't let a coin toss decide your fate. Let your offense decide your fate. I get it. I get it. But if you go for two and you miss it, the same exact people are going to be saying, why didn't you trust the defense to get a stop? Why didn't you trust that you could win the game in overtime? Why didn't you go for the coin toss instead of going for the win and losing? So it's tough because it's a lose-lose scenario. Obviously, if you go for two and you make it, you win. But not necessarily, because the Chiefs still had 30 seconds and they could have got into field goal range. Whereas going for the tie essentially guarantees that the Chiefs are going to also let that game go. Like the Chiefs, we've seen them go down the field, kick a field goal in 30 seconds. So what's to say they didn't? But B, if you go for it and you miss it, it's the same critique. The same people are going to make a different critique, but it's going to be the same people because it's always the keyboard coaches. Credit again to Baker Mayfield for being an absolute stud. He has battled so much this season to get to where they're at. And they're going to be 4-5, and they're probably going to lose to the 49ers. They're going to be 4-6. And it sucks for them because I really do think Tampa Bay is full of talent, but they're missing Godwin. They're missing Mike Evans. They're missing so many pieces that they're missing. They just got overpowered. And all of their losses have been really close. The Falcons twice, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Broncos. They don't have a bad loss on that schedule. They've lost to 5 good teams. And their wins, they have some good ones. They beat Washington. They beat Detroit. Remember, they're the only team that beat Detroit. And they're sitting at 4-5 thinking, man, what a terrible schedule we've had. And they play the Niners next week, who I think they could beat, but we'll see. And then after that, they get the Giants and the Panthers and the Raiders. That's a 3-game stretch where they should win all 3. They'd be 7-6. Okay. Then the Chargers is tough, 7-7, but then they close the season, Dallas, Carolina, and the Saints. So I still think they can go 10-7, even when they fall to 4-6, because their last 7 games are all pretty easy. They have a very easy end of the season. But if you start 4-6, it's hard to then turn it around and go 6-1 the rest of the way, even if they're easy games, because the morale is down. And when the morale is down, that's when upsets start to happen. That's when you drop a game you shouldn't drop to the Saints or the Panthers or the I don't know, the Giants. That's when you start to drop those games. They have to keep their heads up. You took the Falcons to overtime. You took the Chiefs to overtime. You beat the Commanders. You beat the Lions. You're a good I actually think this is the best team with a losing record right now. at 4-5. They're better than Dallas for sure. And I think the Bucs are a better team than Cincinnati at 4-5, which might be, maybe I'm crazy for saying that. I think they are. Um, Meanwhile, the Chiefs side of this game, I think Mahomes is a superstar. Mahomes 3 touchdowns for Mahomes. Um, Leads them on the game-winning drive in overtime. No interceptions. First game of the season, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Mahomes looked great. As far as MVP goes, I'm not ready to go there yet. I still think Lamar has to be above him. And I think Josh Allen does too. I understand Mahomes is undefeated. I understand he beat Lamar in week 1. But right now, the stats are far enough ahead of him that Lamar and Joe Burrow also has really, really good numbers, but his team is below 500. Same as Baker. Baker has really good numbers, but his team is also below 500. So it's tough to make an argument for Baker or Burrow when their team is below 500. Goff, I think Mahomes is probably better than. Both teams really good records. I think Mahomes' numbers are starting to improve though, but I would say Lamar and Josh Allen are still definitively ahead of Patrick Mahomes right now. And if Mahomes beats Josh when they play in a couple weeks, that could change things. If Lamar struggles, Lamar has to play the Steelers still twice, so he could struggle against them. He could struggle against the Browns again. But right now, I'm not ready to say Mahomes is the MVP. He had a great game against Tampa, but he's had some stinkers. He's had some bad games. But the Chiefs feel like I will say the Chiefs have a little bit of an Eagles feel last year where it was like the Eagles kept on winning, but you kind of always felt like they could get beaten. And then at the end, they lost like 5 of their last 6. I'm not saying I think the Chiefs are going to lose 5 of their last 6. I am saying I think the Chiefs are going to lose a couple. They feel like what they're doing, which is winning a bunch of close games and being super clutch, it feels like it's hard for that to keep happening. But then you're like, well, it's Mahomes and it's Spagnuolo and it's Chris Jones. Of course it's going to keep happening. And you're probably right about it.